Speeding.
What does speeding mean?
Speeding is the audio equivalent of rolling on a movie set.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I just learned my first audio thing. Please excuse me one second. Let me check this.
That's a production. Movie production situation.
Yes, very good. I'm going to turn my volume up just a little bit so I can hear myself and you.
Good.
Oh,
it's always good to hear. I see that I put the boom right in front of my face. You can't see me.
Let's see. It is September 14th.
Sunday.
2019. It's a big day, ladies and gentlemen. It's very exciting.
Yes.
And what are we here to do today, Isaac Daly? We should say who we are.
Yes. I'm Isaac Daly. I always have been. Probably will continue to be for any amount of time.
And I am Emma Daly Klein, formerly known as Emma Daly or Emma Klein.
Right.
I do see myself being Emma Daly Klein for the foreseeable future.
No plans to change any of that.
All right, what is our gear? Explain our gear here.
Well, we've got a podcast rig, don't we? And, some
baby.
Very nice microphones. They do capture what you sound like, which isn't necessarily the most pleasant thing in the world.
I like how you sound.
Right out of the bat. Yeah, it's a weird thing, recording your own voice. It's always strange, isn't it?
It is strange. I think that I've done it for so long now.
Yeah.
I don't notice it, but I kind of remember what that was like, and I know that other people, you can see them, hear themselves, and but I do think less so now that everyone's been doing media.
Right. You get a chance to hear what your voice sounds like and assimilate that from various perspectives.
From kind of a lot.
Not just in your head, right, which is normal.
Yeah.
We'd only hear what we sound like from inside our own head, so.
Right. Yeah. So, Oliver, Dominic, they're never going to have, a reference of, or they're never going to have that shock, probably.
Yeah. In just the tone, a camera or any recording device pointed at a person puts the pressure on you. And that doesn't change. And, I think one of the things that's required to be, producing media is to get over that. To be able to get comfortable and put the devices out of your head and just, because it's a skill. It's not easy to do.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. These young kids, Oliver,
a long
obviously
way towards,
day one,
a long way towards that. Yes, but still, he can freeze up. If you look on the little video, you can see that he was like, "I want to talk." I'm like, he goes, I have nothing to say. So you get put on the spot, and then it's all over.
It was interesting to see him as time has gone on with him. There's times when he was completely unaware of what. That was him, obviously, as a little baby. And then as he started to realize, oh, hey, that's me. And then to play around with his reflection. Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so your background is actually in audio engineering to some degree.
Yes. I have supported myself as an audio engineer in live sound reinforcement in concert applications primarily for some time. So... Well, I don't have any degrees in audio engineering. I'm a de facto audio engineer through the fact of learning it because I played in bands and wanted to record myself. And so you learn all that stuff and then got into applying it professionally. So.
And then you've been
much to learn.
Design engineer and construction contractor for a while.
Yeah, that's how I earn my money these days. Better money in building things than there is in recording things, unless you make it to the very top echelon. Which I did not in the 7 years. Right. In the 7 years I worked in show business so far, I missed my opportunities to go to the top. Well,
and also
I had a few, and I missed them. That's how that goes,
Well, I didn't know that.
The Pixies wanted to take me. Cirque wanted to take me. Cirque du Soleil.
Ooh, I would have liked the free tickets.
Opportunities. Yeah, but the thing is, with Cirque, it's joining the circus. You don't come home.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say.
I wasn't up for that at that point in my life.
Having a family and... all that stuff. Much a regular construction job is much more conducive.
Yes,
to that sort of thing. However,
especially the lifestyle.
You have lots of cool equipment, and have always kind of kept your.
Oh yes, I love it all. It's very interesting. I think that I've one of the things that I didn't do was put in a bid on sound capture for an independent movie that I got offered because I've never done that. And that's daunting.
Oh.
I nearly did, but I didn't. I was like, yeah, probably best not.
So this might have all worked out very well.
So my point is that I'd love to work on a film or some more video oriented.
Yeah, but not
production.
more important than this podcast, which you are committing to right now
Yes,
as a priority.
Sure. The podcast
With
is
a
falling
bid
for me. The
zero.
podcast is falling off a log, basically. A little brush up, but there's, recording vocals and dealing with vocals is something I've done lots of.
Yeah.
In many applications, and almost never as easy as this sort of studio environment that you get to pick all the variables. Trying to deal with a sound stage is much more complicated.
Or at a fair. That's what I remember you doing at like a state fair.
It's not even a professional environment. Yeah, we get a load of band on stage in no minutes. It's like that act ended at 12:15 and this act starts at 12:15. And nobody saw a problem with that.
And then you told me one time too, like, the band has to go on at 12:15, and like you got a wad of chords or something, right? And you're unwinding chords to try to you got to stay calm because everything's in a tangle.
Normally, it takes hours to load a band in and sound check them and mic them up and everything. Mm-hmm. And literally, the schedule had a band starting at the same time that the previous act ended. No time to put them up. So yeah, that can happen.
Mm-hmm. So this is much less stress.
Yeah, at the more professional the environment, the easier it is to actually do your job because people know what your job is and they give you the right tools. But when they think you're a sound guy, they have no idea what you do. Then they, well, this is a microphone, right? It'll work. No, not all microphones are the same. Not even close. So.
Right. So that is where, so Nathan and I did a test run on this podcast idea with my iPhone, which I guess is supposed to be running right now, huh? You told me it's supposed to be running.
Stream
right?
and get them all capturing.
I know, but I don't have it going. But we so we did a test run, and then we realized we're really excited about this. We think we want this to work, right? Well, then I called you, and I was like, "Can you help me?" Speaking of all microphones not being the same, because I'm like, well, you get really overwhelmed in just picking the gear. So give us the quick, what do we have here?
What's the chain? Well, the key is the microphones. They're Shure SM7Bs. It's a very industry standard broadcast mic for voiceover and conversation audio, just like this. Mm-hmm. They're dynamic mics, which is means that they're not as sensitive. They don't require electricity to work.
Oh, yeah,
right. The two types of mics are dynamic and condensers. Condensers is what you find in a studio environment, but they're so sensitive and have very little off-axis rejection. In other words, they pick up everything in the room.
It'd be more difficult to film like in a barn or out
on-set location. You're going to get all sorts of background noise.
And we want to be able
and you want to isolate a little bit, and you still get a lot of the room noise, but nothing like you would with a condenser, which picks up everything. Get the dude way back in the corner of the set rustling his jacket comes in super clear. Like you're there, Facebook. Which you might want, but it's not what you want in this particular application. So, excellent mics. And then the brain is a Zoom F4 field recorder. It's designed around movie making, but it's 6 channels of 24-bit, 196 kilohertz audio, which
Thank God you're here.
Preposterously high definition.
But here's the thing is, like I've mentioned before, it's like doing the vlog, it doesn't make any difference, really. Not a significant difference whether we're filming it on our iPhones or like with a $70,000 movie camera, because people are going to consume it on their iPhone.
Right.
And so the point is to just do it, be interesting, be sincere, and people will love it. Whereas when I was like, okay, but now this is going to get piped right into someone's ear, and I want it to sound fantastic so that, it's a pleasure to listen to instead of like you kind of weeding through.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, the benchmark for podcasts is that there aren't any nasty transients or weird sibilances. Transients are popping and snapping type noises.
Don't do it just to make everyone
and
crazy.
Then, any that happen to end up on this recording, I'll take out and post. That's, you know what I mean? There's none of that's going to get through, although the mic makes it really, really easy.
I try not to just cut someone off and turn them off, like if it's popping and tipping.
Right.
But I do kind of still, though, because I don't.
Well, if I'm listening in the car and it's on speakers, and especially in the work van, which is extremely noisy, then it has to be very, very loud, like turned all the way up. And that means that any dynamic range in the recording goes from one guy's whispering, it seems like, and the other guy's shouting. Even though at normal volumes it's sort of comparable, but when you turn it all the way up, then you get this.
And that's exactly the biggest thing, which on the iPhone was that, like, because it was pointed at me. So then I would, say something exciting or I would get excited.
And there's nothing you can do about that really in post
God.
because it's all one track. So you're toast.
Right.
You can't
Right.
fix that later, which we'll be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we should, and then, mastering, which is final level adjustments and sort of washing and prettying up that happens at the very end after the mixing engineer has his way with it.
Can we auto tune? Auto tune.
Auto tune is a pitch thing, and unless you're singing, it's not really going to do much for you. But yes, we could auto tune.
Then everyone's voice is going to sound round and perfect and exactly the same. No, I'm kidding.
No,
It doesn't. I love auto tune, by the way.
If you're singing.
I like the way it sounds.
If you're singing. Yeah, makes you sound like a robot.
Yeah, which I don't mind.
You know,
I like it both ways.
You know how you can tell the difference between a piano singing an A note and a person singing an A note, and between two different people singing that same note?
They sound different.
They sound different, right? It's called timbre. Just for some technical information here, the timbre of a note is the way that you can tell a piano note from a trumpet note, from a guitar note, from a person A, from person B, even though they're all singing A4, right? It's the same note, it's the same, but you can hear the difference. Well, what is that difference? The difference is that note being sung isn't actually one sound wave. It's a bunch of them. So A4 is a 440 hertz wave at concert pitch. When you listen to someone singing an A note, you're not just hearing an A440 wave by itself. We've generated those with computers, and it sounds ghastly. Right? That's not something you want to hear.
That's not a good sound.
So the reality of a piano is it's an A440 and a 220 wave, or really a 221, and then it's a 110 or a 109. They're not perfect. And you have all these secondary waves that are divisions. If the note is beautiful, they're going to be very close to perfect divisions up and down.
No.
But not exactly perfect. And the imperfections of each instrument amount to the timbre. So it's the way that you put you're a 440 and a 119 and a 219, and I'm 440 and a 221 and a 112 or whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's those tiny, very imperfections of the secondary waves.
I did not know
that actually make something beautiful, and they define the timbre of beauty. So imperfection
is
beauty in music.
Oh my gosh,
it's a really cool thing to know.
it.
Uncle Dan taught me that many years ago, and it blew my mind.
Let's make a mark of that.
Right.
Imperfection is beauty.
Very literally, in a musical sense. Music is a strange and wonderful thing.
So how come you can even if someone is auto-tuned, you can still hear their vocal signature.
The timbre.
Yeah.
The timbre of their voice. Well, because the auto-tune does not wipe it all out. And it's, I think, generally moving things. So it just picks up the whole mass of waves and slides it to wherever you feel like you want. But in tune is a subjective thing in the end. Concert pitch is 440 hertz for an A4, for A4 on the keyboard. There's a school of people that like 432 hertz for A440, which is where I tune naturally. If I tune a guitar out of the air, I come in right at 432, not 440. And so, Theo could probably hear, oh, that sounds a bit few cents flat to me, right? Who's a concert cellist.
Yeah.
And he, pounded 440 into him. Like every instrument he's ever heard was tuned to concert pitch. And so that's, and that's fine. But an A at 432 sounds way better to me. And most people wouldn't be able to, unless you played them together, no one's going to notice that for the most part. And hertz in general is based on seconds, which is an entirely arbitrary measurement of time. So there's no reality whatsoever to 440 hertz other than it sounds good. You know what I mean? Because a hertz is an imaginary, it's like miles, right? We could say kilometers, and then it would be a completely different number. So that spot of tuning is entirely subjective and just picked.
That's actually super interesting.
Right. So
we should note
in tune just means sounds good with whatever you're, in the particular application. And
so then if my molecules are moving at a certain vibration and yours are moving at a different, you're going to hear it differently.
Sure, the factors are
unlimited,
myriad,
essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
How much wax is in your ear and the atmospherics and everything,
What you've heard previously,
right,
is partially.
And then there's all the subjective emotional reactions to music that change day to day. Because you can love a song one day and hate it the next, and it's not necessarily because it went out of tune. It's just because you're not feeling the vibe. So it's
Yeah, I was wondering too why certain songs like sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and it will be 1 or 2 songs over like a 6-month period that every morning are playing in my head. And I was like, just random, like, and it's not stuff I would be like, oh, this is my favorite song. Like, it could be like
Right.
Miley Cyrus's worst song.
Oh,
And I'd be like,
well, if you knew exactly what that was all about, you would be rich. And the guys who have figured it out are.
right.
Because they make that, like the millennial whoop is a particular phrase of da-da-da thing that happens in all the pop music, Carly Rae Jepsen. And,
that I love. Yes.
Sure.
Mhm.
We all love it. It does a thing to us. So they know that and they stick it in there and everyone's like, yay.
That's
So,
totally-
right? Like, okay.
I will buy it.
It's like sugar. You stick some sugar in there and
Yes,
people love it.
right.
It tastes great. It's not particularly nutritious on a wholesome level, but everyone likes it.
I think it's perfectly nutritious.
Well, see, but you know all about food, and yet when you apply that same system to art, you're just like way over there eating Twinkies and cheeseburgers. And I'm like, oh my God, what are you talking about? It tastes good. Yeah, I know, but it's not wholesome.
So, yes, has been our our point
We
of
may have
disagreement.
talked this over a few times, yes.
Yes, since time immemorial. We sang music together as kids, and
Oh, yeah.
in like sort of our version of a Waldorf school, etc. And then we grew up, and I never grew up, and your taste in music became sophisticated, and mine was still like
right.
pop
I like all the music. I like all the music that's
you
good.
like all the music.
Well, all the good music. Like I can listen to a One Direction song. I know who wrote it, and it wasn't those boys, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's no problem with them. It's just you can't compare those guys to the guys from Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin or the Beatles or Dave Matthews or
Definitely
they aren't
different,
the same thing.
It's
And that's
really,
the point I try and make. It's just that they're not like in.
and that's okay.
The difference is it is okay. It's absolutely okay. But what always gets me going is pretending they're all the same. Then I'm like, no, that's not okay. Like
I
a
don't
Disney
know.
animation is not the same as a Picasso. They both have their value. They're both art in their own way, but they're just not the same. The best analogy in the world is a home cooked organic meal versus a Twinkie. They both taste good. They're both technically food, but one is nutritious for you in a whole different level.
I don't know that I agree with that, but I get the point. Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting to see like the kids, or the vibe that you see, like if you're looking through YouTube and whenever the kids that are being raised in a studio environment, or even in their home studio environment, versus the kids that are out on the street busking. Like, it's interesting to see how they take on the vibe of the crowd, and it ultimately ends up like shaping them. I love that part on YouTube. It's like you could totally follow the kids as they come up. Like, it's so cool to get to do that. I love that, but that definitely it is shaping their sound, or their affect, maybe more than their sound. Their affect.
Creating a song or a piece of music or a comedy special is entirely different than performing it live in a large way. You hear Joe always talk about, and all the other comedians that come on, they talk about the fact that you can't write jokes you can't finish writing jokes at your house. You got to write them, then you got to take them out, you got to tell them to people, the people react and tell you what's good and what's not, and you got to tune them. And do that a few times, and then you've got to it's not. It seems to be very. Gaffigan talked about it, and Rogan talked about it. Bill Burr talked about it, and like it seems like pretty universal that those guys all are like
this is how you do it.
It's a process. You don't finish it all at once. You do have to try it out in front of people. And Joe was talking about how his first rounds of stuff often suck until he tunes them up. Then they're good. And I don't know how harsh he's being on himself, but you know what I mean. It's a very important part of the process. But that is what they all seem to say.
Right? Like, whatever, just start with something, and then you might just have a glimmer. And then but it's like a year or 2 years, depending on who is telling the story, to get an hour of content. That's a crazy amount of work.
Depends on the guys, yeah.
Well,
artistic endeavors are very difficult to do on call. That's why.
But I think that's the difference between someone who probably is producing and someone who isn't. Or reliably producing, I suppose. That's what I'm saying, is someone who has a process that they can get from not doing anything, doing something, and then fluffing it into. I had a writer of a friend and a client, actually, who's a prolific children's book, Lori Carlson. And she was telling me, she goes, it doesn't matter. Just write something out. It's like throwing a blob of clay on there. You just have to start with the clay and then you can start doing stuff. But it's like the fear of staring at a blank canvas or a turned on microphone or whatever.
Or a camera
you're
pointed
like,
in your face and you're like,
oh,
I thought I had something to say.
Or I had something to say last night and like, I'm not feeling it now.
1 second ago and now it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. But like Chris Stapleton, I was listening to country. I mean, I don't listen to country music usually, but I was listening to Joe Rogan actually, I think. And he was just talking about, Joe's like, well, how many songs have you written? And he goes, I don't know, like 1,000. And like, that is a lot of songs. And to be able to create reliably like that is amazing to me. Amazing.
Well,
something I aspire to, for sure.
For sure. It is certainly one of the critical pieces, right? You can have lots of great ideas, and many people do, but if you don't have some way of capturing them and staking them out, then you're toast. And if you think you're going to not capture any until that perfect one comes along and then capture it perfectly without ever any practicing,
right,
you're going to be severely disappointed.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there. You think, going to take this beautiful picture now that the perfect moment's come along, but you haven't been trying, and you go to take it and the exposure's all wrong, and and the light went before you could figure out what the heck you were supposed to do. Like, you have to be
that's true
tuned up and ready to go for that moment and then jump on it. And that's a great point. Actually, you can have sort of be a terrible artist, but if you produce, then just by accident occasionally you're going to make a good thing. And if you're a great artist but you never do anything, then you're not a great artist. So there's really, the doing is certainly... You have
only the potential to be a great artist.
Right.
Yeah.
You're a potentially great artist, but you're nothing instead, which is, Peterson talks about the narrowing and widening, where if you sacrifice everything else in the universe to focus on one thing, then after a while, that one thing you get mastery of that one thing, and the mastery opens the universe back up again. So it narrows as you sacrifice all the other things you could focus on. All the other pursuits, all the other ways of thinking.
Pretty smart.
Yeah, he is. Right. and so you sacrifice and you narrow and focus. But then if you stay, on that path, then that mastery then opens up. You come to a level in that world that then opens other doors, and before you know it, you're making movies even though you were a horse expert because you happen to run into someone. Whereas if you just tried to go around the outside of that path, then you're nobody, and you go up to that, and they're not interested because you didn't. You see what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, totally. And I think that's a really interesting point.
I was listening to these guys talk about mastering their podcast, and the one guy's like, "Oh, I'll explain my." They had collaborated, right? And they're both audio guys, and the one guy's like, "Oh, I got this mic, and then I do this, and de-esser, and compressor." And it was like an 8 plug-in chain, right? And the other guy's like, "Yeah, I plug in this USB mic and record it." That's it. Do a damn thing to it. Poor one guy who had, because they both sounded about the same.
Oh.
I was like, oh, really? Because I would have thought that they had been both through the same process until they're like, yeah, and let's talk about the way, like, oh. So vastly different.
Nothing.
Chains. They both sounded good, and I don't know, maybe, but it sure seemed like the one guy was working too hard. And he managed not to screw it up, because that's easy enough. It's to, we're going to fix it good.
Yeah. Over-engineer. Our dad knows about that.
Yeah, that can happen.
Well, so what are you excited about? Thank you, first of all, I would say. Thank you very much for jumping right on board with this idea. And yeah, because I really think that, well, 2 premises, of course, with this podcast for me, the Northwood Farms podcast, which is stories about horses by people for everyone. There's 2 main things. First of all, we totally believe that horses are good for people and that it's beneficial for mankind in general for people to have horses. Not everybody's going to have horses, but I think we have about 2 million horse owners in the US right now, according to some statistics that I read, and probably 10-20 million people that love horses. But it's really valuable, and we're at a time right now where horses are almost completely phased out from working, because of course horses haven't been used for transportation in the cities for 100 years, and but until recently they were still a bit being used for work on cattle ranches and things like that, and even that has faded, except for mostly as a novelty. I think there probably are a few exceptions to that. And then you really do have people that are less and less interested in competition, although they are, of course, there are still people that are interested in that. But that's not a requirement of having horses at all. You don't have to be in competition or using them for work because they're good for your soul. So it's a bit like the equivalent of, going out for an awesome hike or standing in a river fly fishing or something like that. It's good for you mentally, emotionally, physically. So we believe that horses are good for people. We think more people should get involved with horses. And then also, really believing that everybody has an interesting story to tell. Every human has an interesting story to tell. So because, of course, I'm so passionate about horses, it will be just sort of natural for me to be talking to people that have horses in their lives in some way or another. And
it makes a focal point in the beginning for
a beginning
to branch the story is often somewhere to come from. What's good for a human is good for humans.
Yes.
6 degrees of separation between every single person on the planet. So it's that's a real thing, and each person's place in that, you feel like you're an insignificant part of the human race, but that's not true. Each of us is a significant part of the human race, and every person that gets healthier and happier and more stable is able to help everyone else around them, and it's a cumulative effect. So anything that's good for the psychology of a segment of humanity is good for humanity at large. You don't have to have anything to do with horses, but it's good that there are some people that are, because that's a connection to the natural world and a cross-communication species, and the calmness and the wisdom that comes through those channels into our race as a species is super critical for everyone, whether you care about horses or not. Maybe you're a dolphin person or not even an animal person, but we need some of us to be animal people. So
I could
and I've seen the
not have
effect
said that better.
of your pursuit with animals and the interspecies communication project on your life and your person and everyone around you, and me, including myself, right? So like that's obvious. So I'm super excited to be involved in any of that. That's why I built your arena.
Yeah.
On one level, this is close to my heart because the media aspect and the audio sort of types is certainly something I've spent a huge amount of time learning about and have underutilized those skill sets as far as making any kind of a permanent mark. And we're undergoing a revolution in the way that we store and communicate information, like 1,000 times the Gutenberg revolution with the way we're passing this sort of media around and learning from it.
Say it again, Gutenberg
the
revolution.
Gutenberg revolution, right when we learned books exploded across the universe, the world, and went from just the priest knowing how to read to everyone knowing how to read. And the amount of information humans passed and saved, and the university was the refinement of human knowledge and the pushing of that forward, exploded. And a couple hundred years later, we've transformed things mostly for the good. And we've got more progress to make on all fronts, but we have the power to do that as a species. And this new set of media and the way that we can now share and pass information is super cool. And I want to get in on that. I want to,
yay.
It's like being one of the original writers. It's like, whoa, there's this new way of sharing your thoughts and preserving knowledge and to contribute to the wealth of human knowledge.
And I'm super passionate.
And, I want to be part of that. I want to leave some record, to make some videos, share some of the knowledge that we've got, because I've been such a beneficiary of that system. And we're in the midst of that crashing wave, and it would just be silly to sit out.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. That's perfect. Exactly. And I love the long format. Which is interesting because I am not one to really sit in front of TV or video or whatever, occasionally, but not usually, right? However, I love having something to listen to, and I will listen to it through my treadmill run and the laundry in the morning and cleaning stalls and whatever. So I like the long format.
In traffic. There's so many hours of our life that I used to waste in traffic, and now you can listen to lectures. I'm listening to a lecture on geology from Nick Zentner up in University of Washington. Wonderful geology lectures that are accessible but technical. So it's not like a Nimrod documentary that there were rocks and they moved. All right, good. But at the same time, you don't have to have a PhD in geology to understand. But it's technical. It's that perfect balance. And like now, a 2-hour drive to work is not wasted. It's a geology lecture, and I got to work. Like that's just such the repercussions of that on humans and what we can do and what we will do. Like we have no idea yet. It's just now happened. We have no idea how this is going to affect us. And if the Gutenberg revolution and the way that the printed word transform society
Right,
is
tells
any
us
sort of a
indication.
litmus. This is, it's just unimaginable how cool and how awesome and how powerful it is to give people back a third of their lives.
Yeah.
To be useful. I mean, that's the sort of thing that we're talking about, and that's why we got to be a part of this and help with that and participate.
And I would say too, like being a realtor, I have been listening to audiobooks since they were on cassette tapes.
Right.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie. You bet. But I would say, and I still do. Of course, I have an active Audible account, and there's, I have phases where I'm either listening to Stephen King maybe, or, Malcolm Gladwell's new books, or a technical, a little bit more of a technical marketing book or something like that. But what I just barely have dipped into is listening to conversations like this, where there isn't necessarily, like
specific topic,
right, or a goal, maybe, like there isn't a specific message. That's what I'm trying to say. There isn't a specific message that is being pushed. And so to listen to a conversation evolve organically over 2 or 3 hours is satisfying, something that I did not even know I was craving.
Right. Well, the commercial
it's calming
mechanism,
kind of.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's huge. And the pace of life we talk about with the way commercials cut back and forth, and the system of media that existed through television, and the commercial interests that drove that, and you put that's like a blender, and you stick in and what you get out is it wasn't planned by anyone, it wasn't thought out. It's just the result of the factors of commercial plus the media system and the way that it all worked ended up with this. If you can't tell the story in 3 seconds, it's not. If it doesn't grab people's attentions in 3 seconds and finish in 10, it's useless. And so almost everything got ignored, and their system worked. But then it's left us with this, like, wait a minute, this is not the way this is supposed to work.
And if you just stop and think about that for a second, like if it cannot be told in 30 seconds to 10 minutes,
right,
it got ignored.
Right. So that's everything interesting.
Right.
Right. Like pretty much everything interesting fits into the category of can't be discussed in 30 seconds or less. Right. You can't even lay the groundwork for your question in 30 freaking seconds. So it's certainly, I think that the most pleasant surprise of my adult life was with, Joe Rogan's sort of comment that, like, everyone's seeming surprise at how voracious the market is for this long format stuff.
Well,
like,
right.
People love it, and I knew I was going to love it, and I was sort of waiting for it. But like, there's some pleasant surprise that we all seem to be experiencing. I'm not alone. It's like almost everybody. It's not. I'm not the one weirdo that hates television. It's like there's the one weirdo that actually doesn't mind it, and everyone else has been annoyed and hating it the whole time, and wishing there was some other ways to fill in. Not that television's all bad. There's wonderful, millions of creative people doing wonderful things on television.
And I like short format stuff
too.
You bet.
And there's tons of awesome shows, and even if you have to survive the commercials, the show still manages to carry itself, which is sort of an amazing thing for those artists.
Is getting more amazing all the time.
Right. That you can enjoy a show with the commercials coming in and punching you in the face every 15 minutes, and then you go back to it seems to work. Like, that's pretty impressive.
Kind of, not for me anymore.
Right.
But,
no, yeah. It definitely takes away, but the fact that it works at all is pretty impressive to those artists, and shout out to them.
And I love,
respect.
Absolutely.
To somehow hack it.
And we have to remember that we're standing on the backs of giants, to get to where we are. So absolute props to all those guys, for
all
sure.
All of our ancestors, all the way back to the ones that tamed fire. I mean, that's a pretty long list of giants that we've been standing on, like a long list.
Yes. My brother, the literalist. Mm-hmm.
Well,
but I was going to say, I love the hyper short video or the hyper short media format as well. Like, it's funny because I love the 3 hour format, like you're saying, but I also love, the 30-second fashion blogger, who can run through 10 different outfits in 30 seconds and is like doing her makeup like on a super. I love that stuff. So every little, it's just fascinating how many myriad ways of producing media there is now. And like I've been talking about for the last month, I have the Vogue magazine in plastic, the September Vogue in plastic on my counter. It's been there since it got delivered, and I have not even opened it. Whereas I've gone through every Sophie Hannah. Check her out on Instagram, you guys. Sophie Hannah. awesome fashion blogger, but she created herself out of, out of her iPhone. And I just think that is the coolest. There could not be anything better. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to go see my hero Wayne Rooney play soccer, probably for the first and only time in his career.
Yeah, you're a Timbers fan, right?
More or less.
Yes,
I am.
You have the
going to
shirt
see the
on.
Timbers, my team, play DC United, which has Rooney on it, so it's a double whammy.
That's very exciting. Well, thank you very much for helping me get everything set up. Yep. I think I'm definitely sold on the camera, so this will be interesting. And I think you probably thought you were going to have 5 or 6 minutes to...
I don't know. It's amazing how easy it is to just talk, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so. That's a thing, and I just know this is going to be fun. So, yes, I love you very much.
Love you too.
Okay.
Until next time.
Okay.
Goodbye, people in the future.
Bye-bye.